welcome to Mission Possible, the podcast that celebrates and highlights the stories of immigrant entrepreneurs in Australia. Today, I'm with Mr. Prem Chand. Prem is an experienced business leader who has worked with international companies, holding different leadership roles and leading large teams. Prem has extensive knowledge in building teams, new markets, and establishing, growing, and transforming businesses. Prem has recently established his advisory business, Ananda Advisory, providing advisory and coaching to businesses in value creation, growth, transformation, succession, and exit strategies. He also assists startups in all aspects from concept and ideation to commercialization. So welcome to the show, Prem. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, and thank you for your time to share some of your knowledge and experience with us. So let me know a little bit more about you. What's your journey? Where you from originally, and what brings you to Australia and to Newcastle?
Great, thanks, Philippe. Lovely to be catching up with you and sharing a little bit about my journey. Certainly. I guess I was born in Fiji, which is a small island. Perhaps most people would know where that is. In a small village, in fact, a small village of about 4,000 people. Spent my early years there and then moved to New Zealand, where I studied, did my high schooling and university. And after finishing my university, I moved to Sydney in Australia, where I started my work career. I've worked across 15 different cities around the world, which I think I'm very, very lucky to have done that. Most of it, I think when you start your career, a lot of people talk about having a plan as to where you want to end up and then working on that plan. I think for me, certainly having some sort of a mud map helps you get to where you want to, but I feel I've been fortunate in getting my career and enjoying the journey I've had, more so because of the opportunities that I've taken when they've come my way. As I said, I've lived and worked in 15 different cities. Firstly, working with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then I worked with Nokia in the early days of Nokia when we were the market leaders. Helped build a lot of the markets for Nokia across, of course, Australia, New Zealand, and then Asia, as well as then Middle East. I've been in Newcastle for 5 years. In fact, 5 years about a month ago. And I've been away for 15 years working globally. And having been away from Australia for 15 years, I felt that I really wanted to come back home. As much as I enjoyed working as an expat, we had great people, great network, experienced a lot of different cultures. But I think there comes a time where you have the sense of wanting to get back home, belonging to a community, and contributing that community. And of course, I had an opportunity that came my way in Newcastle. So I moved from Asia to Newcastle, and here I am now. Since I've been here, I've done a few different things. Of course, as I mentioned, I came here helping a private company that was looking at corporatization as well as succession planning. Having finished that, I decided that I was becoming very involved in the local community. I do a lot of coaching and mentoring with the I2N, which is the University of Newcastle's accelerator program. So I help a lot of startups, coach them, help them commercialize their ideas. And then I got involved with the startup ecosystem here, built a pretty good network, and I guess Newcastle is now home for me.
Yeah, great. How has been your integration to after 15 years living abroad in Asia or the Middle East, coming back to Australia? Because the culture is it's different, I suppose. But how is that integration for you?
Well, I suppose it's an interesting question, and in fact gets asked quite often. I spent 20 years in Sydney before I moved abroad.
Yeah.
And I left Sydney in 2003 to move to Asia. So having been away for 15 years, I was looking forward to coming back home. But interesting question you ask about culture. I think Australia's changed a lot in that time. What
Yeah.
Australia was back in 2000, 2001, 2 and 3 is very different from the Australia we see today. Um, I think we are more multicultural society. We've had a lot of immigration that's happened in the last 15, 20 years. So I think having been away, as much as you're coming back home, you're coming back to more or less a different society in some respects and different culture. Something I hadn't really thought about. I was thinking, well, I'm just going back home, place I belong, and things will be normal. But things have changed significantly in my view. And it takes time to really build your network. And when you move to a new place like Newcastle, I knew no one here. It takes a lot of hard work to build your network again. I suppose I've been fortunate in that, having lived in 15 different cities, I have walked into or flown into many cities not knowing anyone. So trying to build your network, coming to know people, is somewhat of an art, I think. These days it's a lot easier doing that because I think Facebook, LinkedIn, we live in a digital world. Those things make things a lot easier to integrate and assimilate into a new society, into a new culture. For me, I think I love my sports. I do play golf. Golf has been a great, avenue for me to meet new people. And then, of course, maybe a lot of your listeners may not like this, but I do follow Manchester United. And so I suppose you'd be following one of the teams from South
Yeah.
America, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So
but
I follow
I follow
Manchester
the Premier
United, and
League as
then
well.
okay. So who do you follow?
I don't know. Liverpool. I think I'm very, yeah. I don't know. I like the Beatles.
Fair enough, fair enough. So I think, those kind of things, finding people with common interests helps.
Yeah.
And the other thing I think, doing the voluntary work, for instance, as I mentioned, I do coaching and mentoring work with I2N. That has provided me lots of good relationships, and I've built a lot of friends through doing that voluntary work. I coach and mentor the top 100 students at Sydney Uni. That also has helped me in terms of building my network. So I think there's a number of perhaps elements that comes to mind. One is about when you come into a new place, you need to be out and about. You need to go out there. You need to network. You need to come to know people. Trying to get into voluntary work helps, I think. I think certainly for me, getting involved in voluntary work just helps build new relationships. The other thing is, no matter how strong career you have, when you move to a new place, you are more or less starting from scratch. Because you can talk about, oh, I've done this, I've been an MD for Nokia, I've been a, advisor for PricewaterhouseCoopers, I was managing director at PwC Advisory. But it's difficult for people to relate to that. They need to come to know you so they feel comfortable about working with you or referring you to other people. And that, I think, trying to build that credibility is something that only happens when you interact with people and they can see how you perform things. You can talk about, I've done this and I've done that, I've lived here, I've achieved this. But to a stranger, it doesn't mean much. It does give some level of comfort to a stranger, but they need to then perhaps interact with you, see you in operation to build some level of confidence and trust in you. So for me, I think the voluntary work has certainly helped me in terms of trying to build that relationship and building that trust and credibility.
True, true, but also helps that the fact that you work in, multinational companies like Nokia or Price Waterhouse, that gives you a base that has gives you more credibility. You know, I think that it's different to work for a national company in overseas than a multinational company overseas, because when you go to another place and said, well, I work for Price Waterhouse or Nokia, it gives you some sort of professional status, I would say. So that helps.
Yeah, no doubt, it certainly does. I think you could say it opens the doors for you.
Yeah.
More
Yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah.
than if you were working for a local private company, for instance. No,
Yeah, sure.
I agree. I think I've been fortunate in that, you know, I've had great mentors. I've had great coaches who I've worked with. When you work with them, you don't realize that they're coach and mentors. You see them as managers, you see them as leaders. But every interaction you have with your manager, people at work, you learn something from it.
Sure.
And I've been very fortunate that I've worked around a lot of great people, and they've had a significant influence in where I am today.
It's interesting because, when I came here, I didn't know anyone. I came to Australia in 2003 in Melbourne, and then we moved up to Newcastle. I didn't know anyone, and it was really hard to integrate for me because, Melbourne is very multicultural. Newcastle in 2012, and, for the family situation, we were in a little bit of a bubble. And then I started working for Apple, and that was my basically window to Newcastle. So that's where I learned. I started meeting people and networking with other people. And Apple it's an amazing company, and they have an amazing coaching as well, amazing managers where you learn from everyone, and that was a great experience. But I needed that little window to integrate to the community and feel part of the community, because before I was like, I was living in a limbo. I wasn't here really. So it's interesting to know your strategies. Basically, how can you integrate to a different culture? Do you have any particular lessons that you have learned in your international experience that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think certainly no matter whether it be moving to a new city within the same country or moving to a new country, I don't think the approach you take changes. In that, in some places, of course, if you move for work, it's a lot easier, because when you move into a country, you are moving to work, so immediately come to know the team that you work with.
True.
So that certainly helps in terms of integration. But as I said earlier on, I think if I look at things that work for me, I think the digital world has helped. Facebook, for instance. When you go into a new country, you try and look for groups that have similar interests to you. And I think if you get into those groups and then start contributing to that group as well, that helps build a relationship. I don't think in Australia they use it that much. Meetup is an app.
Yeah, it's
which
really
is
good.
Yeah. That I found quite useful as well, because when I was moving around, of course, I love my golf, I love my tennis. I like to meet entrepreneurs, and I always looked around for meetup groups, and then join those groups and go to some of those events. and that certainly has helped me. I think if I think about it, Facebook, Meetup. As I mentioned, I play tennis and I play golf. So when you go to a country, one of the first things that I've done, or to a new place, is try and find a tennis club or a golf club to join, or golf
Yeah.
society to join. Um,
Yeah.
so that helps. I think, as I mentioned, I think we live in a digital world, so things become a lot easier in some respects, because you can reach out to so many people without knowing them. But at the same time, when I have moved, I've always reached out to my network and said, hey, I'm moving to Singapore, or hey, I'm moving to Hong Kong, hey, I'm moving to Bangkok. Do you know anyone there?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, you know, you've heard the term 6 degrees of separation, right? So
Yeah.
in the world, they say that you're only 6 people away from knowing a stranger in some respects in any in the world. So I think through that process, I've got lots of introductions as well from friends who say, yeah, I know this guy in Bangkok, or yeah, I know this guy in Dubai. And obviously they've helped me through those introductions. That has helped. One thing that I find is quite important is trying to find individuals or organizations that have certain level of influence in the society you're moving into. And if you can identify 1 or 2 people and build a level of trust and relationship with them, they become your local sponsor.
Yep.
And they then, of course, help you in terms of introducing you to people. And as much as I have been successful in using those avenues, I find a lot of people now come to me for the same reason. In that, you know, if I meet someone locally at Newcastle or any other city for that matter, if they're new to the society, to the area, I'll ask them about what support they require, how I can help them, because you know I've been there, I've experienced it. It's not an easy thing. So if you can find people that can help you, then things become easier. So if I do come across a new person in town, I always say, okay, how can I help you? And I'll keep that in the back of my mind. So if they have a certain interest, if I come across an article that may be of relevance to them, I might send it through to them. If there's an event happening in town which I think may be of interest to them, I'll certainly, you know, send them a link saying, hey, you might want to come to this event, you might meet some more interesting people. If I'm having an event myself, I would invite them so they can meet other people from my network. So there's, you know, I think you need to be just conscious that you need to help people, and in return you will also receive. So you need to give before you can receive.
Exactly.
You know, if you just sit there waiting for things to come your way, it doesn't happen. You need, in my view, I think you need to be out there searching, seeking, building those relationships. You come across someone who perhaps need help, whatever be it, try and help them, integrate into society. So all those things I think are important. There's no one secret, but I think you need to trust yourself. You need to back yourself. You need to have confidence in your abilities. And I know when I was as a kid, if I was invited to a party, I was bad at networking. I was terrible at networking. I wouldn't want to go to those places because, you know, what am I going to talk to? Who am I going to talk to? What am I going to talk about, right? So I think with experience, I've become more confident in terms of networking. I think you need to be relevant. You need to have an understanding of, you know, what sort of event you're going to, what sort of people you'll be meeting. You need to think about, okay, what if these are the people there, what sort of subjects or what topics would be of interest to them. So do some reading, you know, learn about a few individuals who will be there. So when you walk in there, you can go and say, "Hi, hey Philippe, how do you do? Good to meet you." And perhaps look at the LinkedIn profile, get an understanding of where they've been, what they've done, and you can say, "You have an interesting profile, Tim. I see you lived in this country. How did you find it?" So I think we always need to be ready. We always need to prepare ourselves, and all those things certainly helps you build that confidence in terms of going to an event, networking. And if you get to an event where you know no one, if it's an open event, I normally tend to ping friends and say, "Hey, I'm going to this event. Are you interested in coming?" So at least you try and take someone else with you. So at least there's two of you going to the event, and then you normally find if the two of you are there talking to each other, someone else will come and join you and start talking to you as well. So yeah, all these things, I hope gives you some idea about.
Yeah, sure. Look, the thing is, I am finding it very interesting that social networking is it's key. However, when you are from a different language background, like for example, I'm from a Spanish background. Look, now it doesn't bother me, but at the beginning I was so afraid to make mistakes, or no, not mistakes, but pronounce it right or say a wrong thing. And for us as international people, it's particularly challenging to go to a networking event where you don't know anyone, and you have to supposed to make friends or acquaintances, or networking with other people without knowing them. Sometimes it happened to me until now. I mean, not until now, but all the time, is that you go by yourself to an event, and there's a lot of people, and they know each other, and they're in a circle talking to each other, and it was like, how can I introduce myself to these people, and being without being intrusive, or it's something that you always have in the back of your mind, your language, your how to introduce yourself, and I'm lucky because I'm quite social, so I'm very confident in my social skills. But there's people that they are very shy or introverted, and I tend to notice these people in these events, and I approach them because I know that they need my help. I know that they need the help of someone who is in the same situation. They don't know anyone, and they don't know how to approach someone. And I tend to approach the introverted people, and then they may, we can basically start a conversation, and we can bring other people along. That's my strategy, sort of, thing. But it's interesting.
No, certainly, yeah. No, that's definitely the right approach to take, and I think similar to what I was talking about in terms of going to events, looking out for that lone ranger, trying to bring them into a conversation. Networking, I think, is an art. As I mentioned, it's taken me a long time to get to the stage where I feel comfortable. It comes with practice. I think if you have fear of failure, then you will never succeed.
Yes, sure.
Right? Because your anxiety level goes up. If I say the wrong thing, then what will people think of me? If you start thinking about all those things, then you're not going to move forward. So I think
right.
Something I was saying to someone the other day, that there's a lot of people who never start anything in life because they always come up with reasons why it won't work.
Yeah.
Right? And therefore, if you have that mindset, the moment you start looking for reasons why something will not work, you can come up with thousands of reasons why it won't work.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that fear of failure is something we need to overcome. We need to, if you think of an idea, if you want to do something, don't think about the reasons why it won't happen.
Mm.
Think about, hey, I've got this idea. What can I do to make it happen?
Mm.
If you have that sort of an approach, then you don't think about the negatives. You don't think about, what will people think or what will happen if I fail. Your focus, your mind becomes very much about how can I make it happen? What are the steps I need to take to move forward? And just coming back to your comment about individuals not having that comfort about going somewhere because they feel, oh well, what will people think of me? What will people say if I say something wrong? If you just block that out and think about, oh, I'll go and talk to Philippe and just have a conversation. It doesn't have to be anything. You can talk about the weather, you can talk about sports, you can talk about the country you've come from, you can talk about, your favorite restaurant. I'm new to town. What's your favorite go-to restaurant? So you need to, I think, have that positive mindset. You need to really say, okay, I'm going to this networking event. I'm going to come out of here with at least 5 new introductions. I want to meet 5 new people. And you need to, I suppose the art of networking also requires you to have some conversation starters. Questions that you can ask when you meet someone for the first time. Hi Philippe, how are you? Good to meet you. I love your shirt. Where did you buy that shirt from? I love the color of your tie. Simple things like that, I think, just gives you an opportunity to get into a conversation. Have to have an inquisitive mind. I wouldn't say a lot, some people go to events where they want to do the selling.
Yeah.
They want to sell themselves. They want to talk about who they are.
Yeah.
But I think you need to spend time learning about the other person. Once you know about the other person, it becomes so much easier then to open up and talk about who you are, what you do. Everyone in life, I think, wants to feel as if they're the most important person. So if I was to meet you, I'd ask lots of questions. Where you from? How long you been here? What brought you here? I'll not talk about, hey, I'm Prem, I do this, I've been here. That's for later for me. For me, it's more about coming to know you, making you feel important, so I can understand who you are, what you do. So I think those sort of approach, going to a networking event with a mindset of selling is perhaps, for me, it doesn't work.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, for me neither. Yeah, I usually go to networking events where there's something that really interests me, and there's someone that I really want to meet. I just I out of curiosity, I just want to meet people. However, I've been trying to do it a little bit more often lately, but it was hard at the beginning. To be honest, it was hard. Once I work with Apple, where you have to basically help people, I lose myself a little bit more, and I started to be more confident on my communication skills and those kind of things. But at the beginning, it was really hard. Not because I am not social or I don't want to, it's just because of I wasn't confident enough on my English language skills. And I think that's important. You overcome that and basically be able to, talk to people at a conversational level without being, too aware of, what you say wrong or, so that's exactly what I did. So spot on. Now, Prem, in your view, what leads to people to be successful?
Yeah, wow. What leads people to be successful? That's an interesting question, Philip.
Yeah, it's a different can I frame it a little bit more, because it's just it's a very I just wanna know your view on the culture as well. So you know, maybe how culture or the business environment influence in a success or failure of a business, and is just the person, is just the individual, or it also can affect the culture or the environment.
Yeah. Um, I think firstly, just coming back to success, you asked me a question about
Yep.
success.
Yep.
Um, I think success is very much about looking at what success means to you, right?
Yeah.
Um, to some people, a lot of people perhaps feel that you're only successful if you're wealthy, you're rich, for instance, right? Or you progress your career and become the CEO, MD of an organization. Um, so I think the first thing is about knowing who you are and knowing what is it that you are seeking in life. That's what success is all about. Success is about being happy, right? So you need to. I think success to you, to me, or to everyone, someone else will be different measures. Someone's very happy just having lived a life, brought up a family, and given the family a great start. And for some that's success. For others it might be about, well, I want to thrive, to live in a mansion. I want to drive a Ferrari. I want to have a yacht. So for me, I think success has been very much about coming to know who I am as an individual. For me, success has been about knowing what I stand for, what my values are, being very self-aware of me as an individual. Yeah. I think once you get to the stage where you have that sense of inner peace about who you are as an individual, I think that's the first step in success, being successful, because once you know who you are as an individual, what your values are, that in my mind becomes your guiding light, because the decisions you make in life is always going to be based on your values, right? Okay. So I think if I was to speak from my own experience, I think success for me has been very much about finding myself, understanding who I am as an individual, understanding what my values are, understanding what my capabilities are, understanding how I can contribute. And for me, that has been that is success. Coming back to your question about organizations, and I think if I just rephrase that question, you're talking about
Sure.
organizations.
Sure. Basically, in your opinion, how relevant is the culture and the business environment in the success or failure of a business?
Yeah. I think for a business to be successful, it needs a number of elements. I think one is it needs to have a purpose.
Yeah.
The business needs to exist for a purpose. So as a co-founder, as a founder, if you're looking at creating a business, having a startup, the first thing you need to work out is, why are you doing it? What is the purpose? How is it going to make a difference to your customers? You come across individuals who get into business because they want independence. They want to be their own boss. They want to make money, right?
Yeah.
I feel that if your motivation is to make money, in most cases you will not be a successful individual, because I think if you have a business that is purpose-led, it has a purpose, it's servicing a need in the market, your focus is very much about doing things, providing experiences, designing products that helps the end user achieve what you feel they need. The profit you make is very much a function of how well you fulfill that need. If you go into it with the mindset of making money, then your focus changes. You're not there trying to provide the best customer experience, perhaps. You're not trying to provide the best product. You'll cut corners to how I can make more money out of it. So I think the first thing I'd say is that you need to have a purpose-led founder, a founder who's got the passion, who feels that, you know, they want to create a business because it's going to make a difference to their target segment. So I think the purpose-led founder is a key thing. Then I think for a founder, the cultural aspects are very important. You know, what are your values? How are you going to run your organization? What will be your way of working? All those elements, how you build an engaged team. How do you motivate your team? How do you get, when you're a startup, how do you convince someone to come and work for you or work with you? So I think a strong culture, a purpose-led business are fundamental elements for the success of a business that's starting off. I think the personality of the founder, when you start a business is not going to be plain sailing. There'll be lots of ups and downs. You need to have perseverance. You need to have patience. You need to be persistent. You need to be able, as I was talking about before, we were talking about people find reasons why things cannot happen. You need to have a positive mindset that no matter what, I'll keep on going. Because when it comes to, when you start seeking investors will invest in those founders who they feel have got the tenacity, who have got that willpower, they've got the persistence, the perseverance to keep on going, you know, in moments of adversity. You don't want to back a quitter. You don't want to back someone who, when the going gets tough, they say,
That's
oh,
right.
This is too difficult, I cannot do it.
Yeah.
Right? So I think a founder who has those qualities is important. I think the founder needs to be someone who has confidence in themselves, but then are humble at the same time. So they can engage with people, they can relate to people, whether it be suppliers, whether it be customers, whether it be employees, whether it be investors. They all feel comfortable that, hey, this is a guy I can back, this is a person I want to work with. So yeah, I think perhaps they're the key elements from my perspective that's important, Philip.
Yeah, cool. See, I think that it's important as well, even if you are on top, to be able or humble enough to learn from others, to be able to learn from anyone, basically, because you learn even from your customers, right? When someone tells you or comes with a complaint about something, you learn from that and you fix that problem in a way that that complaint was not a waste of time or a waste of energy. It was a learning curve. I had a small business before, It was not my passion, but basically I had to do something here in Newcastle, and I learned a lot. It was a tough learning curve. I made a lot of mistakes, and I'm still grateful I did it, because it was something that teach me a lot of good lessons. Even though we had to sell at the at the end, but I navigate and I knew I had a lot of adversities, and I knew I had a lot to lose on stake, but I did it, and I'm proud of it, even though it didn't completely succeed. It was not a successful business, but just the fact that I did it, makes me feel great, and I think that I'm ready to do it again, but I'm just I'm in the process of knowing what is the need, and that's my next question, because you mentioned something that it's very important for me, because my goal is to make a difference. My mission, my purpose is to find something that it has a purpose, and make a difference in the community, in my city, in my country. How do I look for those opportunities? Where those opportunities are? Do you have any tip on that, or a strategy to find these opportunities?
Yeah, interesting. I think opportunities are out there for everything, in my view.
Yeah.
To me, it seems like you already know what you want to achieve, what you want to do. I think you need to then start looking for people or organizations that are in the field where you want to get involved. You need to look at how you can build relationships with those individuals who are in that field. The challenge sometimes is a chicken and egg in some respects. You may have all the passion, all the drive, and so-called knowledge, but maybe you just lack the experience. You haven't worked in that industry, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And that can become very challenging, because if you're going looking for opportunities in a particular industry, more than likely, with your background, your experience, should I say, people say, well, I can get a graduate, or I can get a student who can come in and do this thing for me and learn for it, and I won't have to pay them as much as I'll need to pay you, for instance, right? So it becomes challenging trying to get that relevant experience. So what I think something to think about is you need to identify a go-to person.
Yeah.
You need to find someone who can be a sponsor, for instance. You need to find someone who's in that industry, who has a network, and you need to be able to build some trust in that individual, so that person that becomes your sponsor, that person becomes, he's the one who goes and says, hey Prem, I know this guy Philippe, he certainly has got the drive, very credible guy, don't think he'll let you down, he just needs some help because he doesn't have the industry experience, do you think you can help him out? So it's that kind of guardian or sponsor.
Yeah,
that
an
I think
ally.
becomes
We call it at Apple, they call it allies. Well, an ally, a person who back you up. Yeah, not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's and then, as I said, going to events which are focused on your level of interest, whatever opportunity you're seeking, trying to build some network, coming to know people in that particular space, and patience.
Yeah.
Patience. Things don't happen overnight. Sometimes it becomes difficult because you may have family to feed, you may have mortgage commitments, you may have other commitments, so you're looking for work, whatever be it. But I think if your heart is set on something, it's important to be patient and focused and work on it. If there is a need for financial support, do part-time work. There's a lot of stuff out there. A lot of opportunities. They might not pay you $100, $200 an hour, but it still gives you enough to keep you going. So I think you need to be able to somewhat balance the two in terms of work somewhere where it gives you sufficient income, which allows you to then live your dream and fulfill your dream.
Yeah, sure. Look, the thing is, for me, in my personal opinion, my purpose is to be meaningful, to add value to my community and my country, and that the thing is, sometimes, you explore different avenues, different things, and everything is it's sort of saturated. So, I have come to the conclusion that I have to do something completely new, something completely original, and that originality comes from myself, from being authentic, from being myself, and that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'm trying to find. However, there's nothing new under the sun, as the saying, but everything you do, even if it's not completely original or new, if you put yourself into it, if you put your passion and love and perseverance, resilience into it, you make it unique, you make it different. I was talking to another guest the other day. She has a beautiful non-for-profit organization called the House to Growth. It was the first episode of this Mission Possible podcast, and she was mentioning about her her non-for-profit organization, and she spoke with such a passion and love about what she does, and that she inspires other people. She inspired me, and I would love to do something similar, probably not in the same line, but that's my purpose in life, to make a difference and to contribute to other people. The thing is, it has to be valuable as well, because you have to pay the bills, and everyone has to pay the bills. So that's the equilibrium, that's the little edge that you need to find, how you make something that it's has social value and also has economic value. That's the niche. Do you have any examples or strategies to find that opportunity, those kind of opportunities?
Yeah, I think, as I said, at the risk of repeating, I think it's about finding what's that niche you've got, what is it that you want to have a sense of purpose or have a social impact, then trying to find like-minded individuals, trying to find organizations that's in the same space, and then just go out and try and build the relationship that allows you then to pursue your sense of happiness and what your I guess your sense of calling is. I think it's not an easy one. I think working perhaps you must have having worked at Apple with your community, you must have quite a large network. I think it's all about identifying maybe a handful of individuals that you could perhaps work with and use them either to support you or to be your guiding light, ally, coach, mentor, sponsor, whatever you want to call it. And I think you can always have lots of plans and ideas in your head. It's only when you start talking to individuals and letting them know what you're trying to do and what support you need. Right?
Sure.
If someone comes to me, they need to come to me and say, well, this is what I'm trying to do, and these are the problems I've got. Right? And I think, for instance, if you were to come to me and say, hey, I'm really passionate about doing this, and here's 5 people who I need to be connected with, to move this thing forward.
Yeah.
Do I know any of them? Right? So you need to make it easy for the individual you are seeking help from. You have to give them enough direction on what is it, what help are you looking for? What support do you require? I think if you talk in generic terms about this is what I'm trying to do, you know, can you help me? That's too broad.
Yeah. It has to be.
You need to plan. This is where I want to get to, and these are the steps that I require to take to get there. I'm stuck here. For me to move from this to here,
Yeah.
what needs to happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you come to me and say, hey Prem, I need help because I need these things to happen to get to there. It's more focused. It gives me an idea about, you know, what is it you're seeking, and I'll be able to okay, all right. I don't know the person, but I know someone who knows him. Leave it with me. I'll see if I can get you an introduction. If it's too broad, I'm looking at getting involved in national disability area, helping aged care. That's too broad for me.
Yeah.
It needs to be more, okay, I'm looking at providing this service in this industry, and here's 5 people that I need to meet, or here's what I need. I need someone who can build my app for me, build my platform for me, or I need some cash to do this. Do I know someone who's I can go and talk to as an investor? So I think those are the things that perhaps is important, Philip. That's from my perspective, I think.
Yeah. Interesting because look, my next question was along those lines, but basically I'm not sure if you can add something to it, but basically when someone comes to you with a business plan, right, a potential client come to you with a business plan, what do you focus on to assess the success or failure of the idea? A part of the purpose, a part of in the technical sense.
Yeah. I look at, I guess, 4 T's, as I call it.
Yeah.
The first T is about the team.
Yep.
So the team being the founder and the individuals who are with him. Assessing what I talked about earlier when you talked to me about success of startups. I touched on the elements that's required for a founder. So the team's aspect is very much about identifying capability, experience of the founder and the team, and as well as the purpose, the passion. So one of the questions I would normally ask if someone comes to me for a startup or for any business help, I normally ask them about what is your story. That's perhaps one of my first questions that I ask. When you ask someone that question, they have their own way of answering it, and how they answer it gives you an idea about the individual and what they are trying to do. So I think the teams is important. Technology, in terms of, you know, how good is the technology, how good is the product, is it something that's innovative that no one else has even had a go at? What sort of a problem is it solving? Is it a compelling problem to solve? I think from a technology perspective, those are the things you want to try and understand. The other thing from a technology perspective is the barriers to entry. If someone's going to invest and create something, they need to create a barrier so that you don't get 10 others going into the same industry providing the same service. So looking at those barriers to entry, what makes the product unique, the moat, what is it that gives it the unfair advantage? That, you know, if if they build it, no one else can get into it. So I think the technology is important. Then, of course, you're looking at target market. Who are they trying to target as customers? How big is that market? It's a bit like I always talk about this thing about there's no point building a rocket-powered mousetrap, because a rocket-powered mousetrap would be great to have, but it'll cost you zillions to build. Who'll pay you for a rocket-powered mousetrap, right? That's just an analogy, but you need to look at, okay, what's the problem I'm solving, and how much is it that a consumer or a customer would be willing to pay for it? So understanding the target market, the size of that market, the business model, all those things are quite important. And the final T is about the traction. Have you had any traction? I've come across a lot of founders who think they have a great idea, but they've never spoken to a customer. If you haven't spoken to a customer, how would you know if it's a product that's desired by a customer? Right? So I think having an understanding of the traction, having spoken to customers who are willing to pay for it, all those elements are important. So I suppose those are the 4 T's from my perspective, Philip.
So, for example, in the traction bid, when you try to create traction, do you do a research beforehand? I mean, do you mean doing a research or traction, developing the product or the service, and then try to acquire clients? Or doing a research?
It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
It's a combination of both. One is about the research and talking to customers, so you fully understand what the customer's needs are, what the hurdles are, what their buying decision is, and obviously that's the research elements, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
The MVP, for instance, the minimum viable product, is something that can come later. But at least, if you had an idea, you may not have done the validation, but you need to have gone out, spoken to customers, potential customers, to validate that this is a great idea. Yeah. There's no point in building the product before.
Yeah, no, that's right. But the thing is, you
customers.
have to. So an investor, because I had some ideas, a lot, and the thing is, how do you find those investors? And when you go to an investor, do you have to, do you need to build the idea beforehand, or you need just to present the idea on a presentation? Or how do you validate an idea that is just an idea? Without probably you need a business plan, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious, or reasonable. I mean, an investor is not going to invest in your idea if you don't have a business plan. But if it's, for example, a technological product, a website or a marketplace, how do you find those investors, and how do you approach them?
Yeah. So, if you look at the journey of a startup, or for any business for that matter, there's a bootstraps phase where obviously the founder bootstraps it, does other jobs, uses his own money, uses his own sweat equity to build something. The next phase is family and friends, right?
Yeah.
So having family and friends who are willing to give you some money to take your project further. Then, of course, you come into angel investing and PE firms and VCs as well. But depending on what stage you are at, there are different types of investors also, in the sense that there are some early stage investors who would invest in an idea. You'll find early stage investors who maybe they will not invest in it, but they would be saying, well, it's a great idea, I wouldn't mind coming on board with you and let's work on it together. So finding individuals who've got some other skills to complement your skills,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It
Yeah.
could be a business advisor, could be an accountant, finance person, sales, marketing, operations, supply chain, whatever be it. But so I think there are a number of, as I said, there's the process for funding, which is bootstrapping, family and friends, angels, PE, VCs, IPO. But very, very early stage, it comes down to family, friends, and finding people who share the same interest as you.
Yeah, interesting. Because I years ago I had this idea and I would really want to pursue it, but then I thought, look, I don't have this side. I didn't have the technological knowledge. I am like a marketing communications ideas person, but I didn't have that side, and it was going to be very expensive. I didn't know how to approach an investor or potential investor. I tried to reach out with people, but it takes time. It takes a lot of effort and it perseverance, as you said. Look, Prem, I know that your time is limited. I thank you so much. I have a lot of questions for you, to be honest. I would love to catch up with you at some stage later on in the new year. I know you have to go now, so thank you so much. I wish you a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for your time. I know it's very valuable. And I hope we can continue do a chapter 2 Mission Possible with Prem Chand. So what do you think about that?
No, thank you for the opportunity, Philip. I enjoyed this conversation. Lots of good questions, and I love sharing my own experiences. And if it helps listeners shape their future in some way, then I have achieved my purpose. But I'd love to catch up for another session, or even catch up with you socially to have a chat about where you are, what you're doing. But lovely to have met you. Thank you for your time. Great questions. Have a lovely Christmas to you and to all your listeners and viewers, and all the very best for a happy, successful and prosperous 2024 as well.
Thank you, Prem. All the